Hey everybody, Paul here from 606flix.com, or some of you know me on redversusblue.com. What we're doing right now is this is the first installment of the Army Memoirs video series. It's going to be based on, well, it's all going to rotate, it's all going to revolve around one particular set of stories, and what it is, it's about the Christine saga. For those of you who aren't familiar with Christine, you can see it on the main news page of 606flix.com. That's the number 606 and the word flicks. You can spell with a CKS like a normal person or with an X like a jackboot, and you'll see it there on the news page, and this is backstory behind Christine. And so the reason I've decided to go with this format when it comes to telling you guys this story is because typing it just doesn't seem to do it any justice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you guys a story because it requires just a little bit of animation and some enthusiasm in the voice, and you just can't convey that over written words. So I'm going to tell you guys a story right now of the old Charlie 1-2. This is before my days in the military. Okay, and also for those of you who aren't aware, I used to be in the Army. This is many moons ago. Some people would argue that once a soldier, always a soldier, and but that's neither here nor there. Point is, I used to be in the military. When I was in the military, I was on tanks. One of these things. Yes. I started off on the M1A1s, Abrams, and I finished off on the M1A2 Abrams. And so the stories that I'm going to tell you are from the old Christine. If you guys aren't familiar with it, look it up on imdb.com. Christine is a story of a car that had a personality, an evil personality of its own. And our tank also had an evil personality of her own. Now here's the story of the old Christine before my days on her. Okay, so what had happened was there's a site out in Fort Irwin, California. That's in the southern end of California. It's a whole other state. And anyway, Fort Irwin, California, there's something called the National Training Center. Now the NTC, what it is, it's a big fucking desert, humongous desert, and it sucks, right? But the thing about NTC is that it's meant to mimic a desert warfare environment such as Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that, because that's kind of how we were gearing towards when it came to combat. Now there's a residing force there at Fort Irwin, and this residing force, they're called the OP4, that's Opposition Force. These guys, they train specifically in Russian armor tactics, okay? Because during the height of the Cold War, that's who we expected we were going to go to war with. And on top of that, a lot of the countries that we could possibly go to war with trained with Russian tactics and Russian tanks. And so we have American tanks down there that are dolled up to look like Russian tanks. And what we do is we'll have companies go on maneuvers, armor companies, U.S. armor companies go on maneuvers, and they fight mock battles with not real bullets, but not with real ammunition, but real enough. And so so anyway, out in NTC, I had this tank commander, right? This is before I was there, like I said. We had this tank commander. His name is Sergeant Hopkins. Okay. And Hopkins, this guy, he hated the way I drove. I don't know why he hated it, but he hated the way I drove. And so he used to give me all sorts of shit about driving. He said, "Talazzo, you can't drive for shit. You suck at driving." I forgot to mention he's from Bogalusa, Louisiana. And he believed that Texas was already too far north as it is. And so my old tank commander, Hopkins, right? This guy, he was like super critical of everybody who he thought couldn't drive for shit. And so that included me. And so what happened was they told me a story, the guys that used to be on his crew when he went to NTC, they told me a story about Hop. What happened when they put him behind the T-bars. That's the T-bars of the tank, that's how it operates. So what had happened was this guy, his name was Polanco. No, not Polanco. There was this guy, his name was Alanis, that's his last name. So Alanis was driving the tank, alright? Hopkins was the tank commander, Bowers was the gunner, and Polanco was the loader. What happened was Alanis was driving, and Hop couldn't stand the way he's driving. He was crossing wadis and hitting ditches, and just Hop was just all sorts of pissed off at Alanis. He said, "Alanis, get the fuck out of the driver's hole. All right, we're gonna mix it up. I'm gonna drive." All right, that's what Hop said. So Hop jumped down in in the driver's hole. Alanis moved over to the gunner station. Polanco, who was in the loader station, he moved over to the commander's station. And Bowers, who was the gunner, he moved up to the loader station. And so anyway, so now they're maneuvering, right? They're moving in the dark. You can't really see a whole lot, not even with the night vision for the driver. You can't really see a whole lot. So Hop is driving. They're moving, and all of a sudden the tank dropped out from underneath them. You know, it just boom, dropped out from underneath them. All right. So now Bowers, you know, he's standing up behind you know, in the loader station, you know, hanging out with his head in the wind. And when the tank dropped out from underneath him, he went flying up. All right, and the only thing that kept him from flying all the way out of the tank was his boots got caught on the turret ring, and it flipped him forward, and he landed face first on the on top of the turret. And then let's see, Polanco was up in his commander station. Again, for him, same thing as it happened to Bowers. He popped up, or the tank dropped out from underneath him. And then instead of flying all the way out, he actually fell back down into the tank. Now, since the tank was leaning on a downwards angle like this now, when Polanco came falling back into the hatch, he went boots first into Alanis's face. All right, now Alanis, the loader station or the gunner station, is in front of the tank commander, and so Alanis, what happened is he was up on a brow pad like this, right? There's a big pad with a sight, and you got controls like this, and he's up like this, right? When the tank dropped out from underneath everybody, he's like, holy crap, and he started looking right like this, looking for somebody behind him to see if anybody was okay. And as he's doing this, Polanco's boot like hit him in the face and jammed him all the way into the imaging, a thermal imaging system, and all the sighting systems for the tank. And so the tank, right, what had happened was Hop had driven over a berm. All right, now a berm, it's actually a pit that's made for targets. All right, what had happened is he drove over the pit, and he dropped the tank down into the pit. The gun tube of the tank went jamming into the sand. All sorts of shit came flying into the tank through the gun tube. And while all this is happening, Bowers is flying up through the loader's hatch, you know, hooked on the boots, falling face down on top of the turret. Polanco is flying up out of the commander station, flying back down into Alanis's face, and so now the tank is still running, still whining. There's not a whole lot of noise going on, but the tank is still whining. There's shit everywhere. Everybody's a little bit hurt and beat up, got blood bleeding all over the tank, and over the intercom, the only thing that anybody ever heard was, "Everybody all right?" Now, if you ask Hop, he didn't make a mistake at all. As far as he was concerned, he was the best driver on the planet, and when it came to being a tanker, he was a tanker to end all tankers, I guess you put it. But after that, I think it's after that Hop never gave me shit again about how good or how bad he thought I was driving, because I knew that he'd hurt everybody on the crew except for himself. So until the next installment of the Army Memoirs Christine series, I'll see you then.